Yeah, I'm Tom Hesterburg. I'm a toxicologist with Navistar, Inc. I guess the question that I had, I'm a toxicologist. I'm not an epidemiologist, but I have read, and there's a publication by Bufetta Paolo, who's the head of epidemiology at IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer. And in that publication, he indicated that in these types of ecological studies, that it's plausible, very plausible, with all the uncertainties and potential confounders, that if you have a relative risk less than 1.5 to 2 range, that could be very well be residual confounding or unknown confounding. And kind of a follow-up on that, and along those lines, I know that the studies that have been presented today have addressed other co-pollutants, but those are only the co-pollutants that are measured at the monitoring sites. There are many other co-pollutants that go up and down with PM that are known toxins, known carcinogens, that have not been taken into account. How would you take those into account if they're not being measured?
Let me ask, you raised a number of issues that I know many people around the room have been thinking about. EPA has certainly considered these as well in their documents. So would someone like to respond? Dan, are you shifting forward?
That's a really important point, and Paolo's results do indicate that if you have ecologic variables, it's a really important point that you're raising about the potential for confounding by different types of variables that may be related to air pollution. And if you have ecologic indicators of those variables, which means not at the individual level, but for a group of individuals in a common area, the problem becomes even more important. I think the results that Paolo was describing are probably more for when the variables are primarily ecologic. But in the ACS cohort, we have several hundred individual variables: smoking, diet, BMI, occupation. Those are all for each individual, and the only ecologic covariates are largely the pollution measures, and also some of the socioeconomic and demographic variables that we include as extra assurances for avoiding confounding. In our first reanalysis, we went to great pains. We looked at literally hundreds of individual variables. We looked at, I think it was 20 plus ecologic covariates. We looked at every pollutant that we could get our hand on. We constructed occupational exposure indices, linking together whole suites of individual compounds that could be lung carcinogens, respiratory irritants, and adjusted for everything under the sun. And by and large, after I hate to use the phrase torturing the data that way, we found that most of those adjustments didn't have a big impact, largely because the original data are, with our baseline model, adjusted for over 40 individual covariates. So a good point, but because we have a semi-ecologic study with many of the variables being individualized, we can do a much better job of adjusting for residual confounding. I hope that helps.
Okay, Suresh?